Robert Herndon.
There he is.
Good morning. It's Friday, April 12th, 2013. I'd like to call the meeting of the Tennessee Board of Examiners for Land Surveyors to order. We have one item that we're going to be carrying over from, actually two items from yesterday. The one item we're going to discuss throughout the morning meeting. Yesterday we went through the policy statements that we currently have from the board, and Mr. Northcutt and I both feel that it's important that we review these in the presence of our third surveying member, Mr. Cagle, and have any comments that he may have, so if it's necessary for us to make any changes from what we did yesterday. So we will do that through the course of the meeting today to update Mr. Cagle. I'd like to welcome him here this morning. Also, for your benefit, Mr. Cagle, yesterday when I opened our meeting, I apologize to the members as the chair from the standpoint that we did not receive our agenda. I want to extend that apology to you as I did to the members yesterday. One item of carryover from yesterday, while we were discussing the FS examination and the process that we were looking at to go through that, I asked Ms. Mulder if she would get us some data from 2012 for the FS examinees, and she has done so, and I want to thank you for doing that, Donna. There should be a sheet in front of each of you that basically what that tells us is that in 2012 we had 25 candidates. So that took the FS, and that number is much smaller than what we talked about yesterday. We were talking about potentially 40 to 50 maybe, so right. It's much smaller. So that tells me that the scenario, what we did yesterday, David, is in the future, so the applicants will actually be able to take it at a Pearson View Testing Center. So what we tried to determine yesterday was a tentative methodology about how we were going to approve applications, because these folks would be able to take it in two-month windows. So basically what it amounts to is we're going to approve FS applications at all 4 board meetings. That way it keeps it going on and doesn't delay. Typical April and October examination. So that's what that amounts to. And from this document, you can also see Donna has provided the cost that we have been currently paying to NCEES for each FS examination, which between the booklet and the scoring amounts to $100 per examinee. Now, not included in that cost, and she does not have a breakdown, but she did mention it, is Mr. Messier's administration or proctoring of that exam. His exam fee for the April cycle there was $8,300. Now, what that includes is proctoring the FS, proctoring the PS, proctoring the TS, and also scoring the TS exam. So it includes several different parts. So I'm sure that of that fee, there's not a large amount of money that would be directed towards FS, but a fair amount of money. So basically what this sheet of paper proves to me is that the FS examination has been costing this board money, and with CBT, it should cost the board money. In other words, we won't have that additional revenue, which currently the examinee is paying $125 to take the test. We're paying NCEES $100, and then we're paying Peter Messier something. So at the end of the day, it appears to me that by the numbers that we're looking at, that losing the FS as a part of Mr. Messier's administration of the examination in lieu of CBT, it will be a positive financial impact to the board. won't have as much revenue or expense either one, so it should be positive. So that's a good thing. It's also a good thing for the applicant. So if there's any questions on that, we'll look at that. Got about 15 minutes here prior to our first appointment, I believe. Is that correct, Donna?
I think so.
Okay. I think we have 4 individuals coming in to speak to the board relative to an application that was denied at our last meeting. So in the time that we have before we have our first speaker to us, I would like to go ahead and continue our discussion on potentially licensing photogrammetrists and GIS individuals. I found it quite interesting to note that when we met at the TAPS convention, one of the questions that we were asked at the convention, in the minutes, says, "Are we looking at licensing photogrammetrists and GIS individuals?" So, that I felt that to be very positive, because that is some of our licensees that are concerned about it. So I think we need to kind of continue with that. I know Galen and I were in a Surveyors Forum meeting in Biloxi last week, and one of the things that was discussed was this very issue, was how other states license photogrammetrists and GIS individuals. One thing that we learned from that meeting was that all the states that did this process had to initially grandfather that there would have to be criteria established for grandfathering each of these types of individuals. On the photogrammetric side, states are handling it a little bit different. Some states are handling the photogrammetrist strictly as a photogrammetrist. Some states are handling it as a land surveying or a photogrammetric surveyor, and other states are simply grandfathering these individuals in, and the new ones that apply have to actually become land surveyors. So primary states that handle it in those manners are Florida, Virginia, and North Carolina. Virginia does the licensing as a photogrammetric surveyor. That's what they call it. So it's actually a licensed as a photogrammetrist, and Florida they licensed as a land surveyor. Process of this, that before we would be able to, for example, charge or talk to TAPS, I think that we need to formulate some type of a method that we want to, try to look at. Other investigation, particularly relative to the photogrammetry. Photogrammetry, I think, is pretty clear. To give the board some numbers, Virginia has licensed 150 photogrammetrists since they started. What you'll see in this is it's pretty consistent licensure. Talk with Gary Thompson, who's on the North Carolina board. They've licensed about 110 in North Carolina. He also indicated that the president of ASPRS, which is the Photogrammetric Society, favor, I think Galen was standing there when we was talking about that, has indicated favor in states continuing to license photographers. In other words, I'd like to see everybody licensed. Now, depending on how it's licensed, can dictate also how they're tested. For example, in North Carolina, because they license photogrammetrists, they utilize the colonial states, I think it's called Earth and Science. They use the colonial states physical science examination. That examination drafted by that group, and it's specific for photogrammetry. That's a situation. It's parallel. NCAAS has not taken that on yet, so it's sort of a parallel organization in a way to NCAAS, where they've created. I think it's the most important thing we have to figure out as we go with this is how we want to license these people. Do we want them under the surveyor umbrella, or do we want them under the photogrammetric umbrella? Once we figure that out, then I think that the situation of grandfathering will be pretty straightforward, because that'll give us the criteria that they would have to fit in to be grandfathered. I was charged at our last meeting with sending Bobby Tuck of Tuck Mackley Solutions a letter. He did not respond back to me in writing, but we had a conversation. He did send me a copy of a grandfather application for Virginia. He had different feelings about different states as to how they license, because Bobby is not only a photogrammetrist, but he's also covers the whole gamut, so he has a pretty good perspective on it. So I'm going to continue to encourage him to try to put something in writing so we can have it of record for the board. Basically, that's kind of a report on the photogrammetric side. I can tell you that in this current legislative session in the state of North Carolina, that they have a GI. Currently, there's just a couple of states that do license GIS. In North Carolina, my standpoint, these two areas of licensure relative to surveying are GIS has really invaded what yet to have any significant complaint. Better addressed, just like when we did our standards, we added some new language for GPS. That gave this board the ability to regulate that in a manner that it needs to be regulated to protect the public. Right now, we have these other two professions that are doing our work, or portions of our work, and no one in the state has the ability to regulate them unless we determine what they're licensed, and you're falling under statute when you're dealing with them. So my personal opinion, and I hope the board finds favor, that we need to continue to pursue the possible photometric licensing and also GIS licensing. Point that I think we need to make a decision as to what direction we want to approach it, and then I think that, obviously we don't create legislation, the association they think, and if they want to direct legislation, then that way we would be in a situation prepared to deal with that and handle it and move forward with it. So.
I didn't either. That's why I thought that you might have talked and asked about that. So.
Talking about Florida, they would apply exactly to our
Simplifies a lot of things.
Right. And like I say, that's the model that Florida has used. They basically grandfathered the existing ones.
Mars, we're not coming in.
You got to punch a button before it
No,
comes
no,
on.
no, you talk.
You see it light up on the microphone there.
Yeah, a little red thing on the
Light
microphone.
up until I punch the
No,
button.
see, it lights up as soon as you say something.
That's because I.
See here? Look here. Now, you don't have to punch a button.
Okay.
Sounds like that we're kind of getting a flavor that, in general discussion, that maybe we want to potentially approach TAPS with some dialogue maybe of photogrammetric licensing and licensing as a surveyor after they're grandfathered in, because, historically, that's what this board has done. I mean, the initial 500 surveyors in the state of Tennessee were grandfathered in when the law came in. Approximately 1,000 to almost 4. Had two major grandfathering situations to our umbrella of licensure, so I wouldn't see any problem with this.
I think the other thing is getting the GIS technicians drawn into this thing, because problem to have to deal with that's coming up rather than a photogrammetrist. But
right. On the side of the switching gears on the side of GIS, you've got a situation to where they do an awful lot of what we do to start with. And the other side of that is the graduates that we're putting out from the BS programs. Both of these routes will give them more potential opportunities for jobs in the future.
Sure.
And we better protect the we have anything else on that? If not, I think we have some gentlemen here that would like to speak with us, and we'll stop that discussion, and because we don't want to keep anyone delayed from their appointment. Give us just a moment here and let us look through this paperwork, see what we got.
Yeah.
Okay, I apologize for the delay. We wanted to review the file briefly before, is Mr. Cochran in the room? Please come up to the microphone at the podium, if you would, Mr. Cochran, and address the board.
The reason I'm here today is my application to take the exam was apply in the 10-year non-educational. I mean, it may not, it may be, maybe I missed a date or something on my application, I don't know, but,
Your initial application, Mr. Cochran stated that you applied under the 10-year rule, and you were given the opportunity to take the exam. And how did that turn out?
wait, I was accepted by the board to take the application and did not pass.
Let me give you just a little background on what's considered a 10-year rule. There never was a 10-year rule. What happened, and I was on the committee when this all took place, TAPS and the surveying profession trying to get the profession elevated to what we call a professional surveyor, and to do so you had to have a BS degree. At least that was part of the prerequisite to being considered professional. And so we requested the legislature and asked for a bill to be passed that we licensure procedure that anyone that applied for licensure have a BS degree. The legislature passed that, and I was on that committee. I went to East Tennessee State to work with program. We got that accredited through a lot of effort and what have you. Legislation passed. At that time, those surveyors that were applying for licensure just prior to the bill being passed, the requirement was charge. And, of course, all of the three of us, we well remember that. And so what happened is that as soon as that legislation passed, that the 4-year degree requirement came about, we, the board, and I was not on the board then, but the board said, all right, when that legislation passed, then you will have, all of you that are in the system now, you will have 6 years to get your application in to take the exam under the apprentice type program, or provide experience and education stating that you have. As that time period came up, the 6 years, the board extended that for, guess what, 4 more years. So 6 years and 4 years adds up to what? 10 years. It was never the intent of that to be a 10-year apprentice program. Because surveyors by nature procrastinate. And so I gave those surveyors that were somewhat in the pipeline and had been a little lackadaisical about to take the exam, I gave them 4 more years. Well, lo and behold, that became known as the 10. Stopped at the end of 10 years, and the 4-year degree program so you were granted the opportunity to take the exam under what was known as the 10-year rule because you had that much experience. That particular rule, it went on, I don't know how many years. We don't have that anymore. It's just strictly a program. However, you were granted the opportunity to take the exam one time under that, and you've only taken it once, right?
No, sir, I've taken it twice.
Also,
I have not passed any one of the three.
well, the standards of practice and our rules also state that what one needs to do if you have taken the exam twice and you don't make it through after that second time, right now that's what we're going to talk about. As you've taken the, what have you done to prepare yourself better to take it another time? Other than just field experience. You're close here to Nashville. Have you gone to Nashville Tech and taken anything there?
Well, I took some computer classes, but not.
No. Yeah.
College for on and off for 6 years to be in business.
My suggestion would be, and I did this when I was learning to survey, at that time, the University of Tennessee at Nashville, which is now program and in basic surveying, and if I'm not sure that prepares you to get through the fundamentally handling the things that we every day deal with in surveying.
The very best thing you could do is go ahead and get that degree from Middle Tennessee. What, 36 hours additional to a degree in business or whatever.
I don't know how disciplined you are to take a course online, because you can get these courses online, the 36 hours that are required. Probably a good thing to do, but that's not the point. The reason for denial was the fact that you've taken the exam.
I think the primary situation here is that on that criteria, and you were allowed by a previous board to sit for the examination, and you did. Actually, you said, according to the records that we were given, actually you said a total of 4 times. One time you only took one part, I think. So, and you were unsuccessful in those attempts. And had you, it's probably somewhat incorrect judgment on the prior board, but they did approve the application. You did get the opportunity. So, window of opportunity, and you were just, unfortunately, you were unsuccessful in that window. So, based on the way that the current board that sits before you interprets the statutes and how things are to be handled, hours is what I see that you're going to have in order to be able to sit for the examination. You have to have the 4-year degree plus the 36 hours, which this board has been very lenient with those hours being allowed to be a part of the degree. The statute clearly says the degree plus. The reason for that leniency is we had our exam proctor come to us several years ago and speak to us about that, and felt like that it was unfair to a college student to ask them to not take, for example, surveying courses when they were majoring in business or some other area, and those courses not be counted. So if that was their route of pursuit, if they took the course and it was part of what we require in that domain of 36 or 24 hours, depending on the route that the person chose, then that we should count that, whether it was taken at the undergraduate level or at postgraduate level. So that was at his venue to us, because basically what he was saying was college course is a college course is a college course. So that's why this board has continued to look at it in that manner, even though our statute leads us a little bit different from that. I guess what I would need to say is, I don't know that we need to take a vote or anything, but what I'm board is that we stand pat with our decision as far as the denial of your application. We want to thank you for coming and putting a face with the application and speaking to us about it. But basically, our statute's pretty clear, and you need to fit into some portion of that statute and apply. And if you do so, then we'll be more than glad to approve your application.
Benefit of some others that I work with that are not here today, that have like grandfather type thing that I can tell these guys that
Grandfather.
Not with that,
No.
because that 10-year rule, as soon as that legislation, I'll get the year for you if you want to know when that legislation was passed, as far as the after that was the end of the time one would be 6 years of responsible charge, and that would have been it.
The Galen, the legislation was passed in 1997,
Okay.
and it allowed until July the 1st of 2003 people with experience. That was that 6-year window that Galen spoke of earlier. It allowed that, and like I say, it was extended. And like I say, the board that you applied under found favor with your 10-year application, and they allowed you to take it, and you were technically outside that window. So I understand that, and we may want to discuss with our board attorney a little further your plight, but because you have actually sit for the examination, but unsuccessfully. So, but we need, as far as this board, we need to maintain consistency with what the statute says, and that's what we try very, very hard to do. And I realize that in this particular case, that does penalize you, and I understand that. Something other than surveying, yes, sir.
50 degrees and something other than surveying,
Right.
you will need 36 hours.
Started kind of in the, right around this window. The 36 hours of online without obtaining my 4-year degree.
That has to be included with your degree. It has to have that many hours. You have to have, has to have at least those 36 hours in that. Or if you've already gotten a degree and you don't have those 36 hours, you're going to have to take 36. Take 36 hours in surveying rather than the 50 hours of what goes. I don't know how the university would work. Then you would have those hours included in your degree. That would finish that. But if you don't get those 36 hours within that degree and you go ahead and get the degree, you're still
Let me, Mr. Kaufman, if I may, let me ask our board attorney a question. Rob, in the spirit of trying to help this gentleman, are you aware of anything in the statute that basically, since this gentleman was approved and has set for the examination, of any obligation that the board may have beyond that? Because as I read our statute, he has to basically reapply, and the reapplication stands on its own merit. Yes.
Boards can't act outside their authority. So
Right.
policy to interpret that 10-year description statute.
One thing I can tell you, Mr. Cochran, is that, and you spoke earlier about other gentlemen in your employee and friends and associates and so forth, we just yesterday updated all of our board policies, and those policies will be placed on our website so that this situation relative to this 10-year adventure will be very clear to everyone that they go on the website. That's why, as you can say, as you understand in your plight, that's why that the board crafted a policy which is a better definition of what the statute says. And that's why we're also making sure that we get it on the website so that someone else doesn't get caught in the situation that you're in.
I guess the situation I'm in is I missed my opportunity. Is that a fair statement? If I'd have passed however the law was read then?
Yes, sir. That's a very fair statement. You were given an opportunity. Technically by statute you should not have been given, but you were given the opportunity, and you had four chances within a 2-year window to take the examination and pass it. And had you passed it, you would have been a licensee of our state. Not, and you have to come back under reapplication, and that's what you've done under reapplication. Then you have to adhere to the rules. I would not say the rules have changed. I think the rules are the same. I think the board interpretation.
We're sticking to what our statutes tell us. What was not done previously.
Right. The board interpretation at
At
that time was different than what it is today. But the statutes are the same. Me too. I'd be glad, sir. I don't know that it's going to help this gentleman in his situation. So I mean, I'm not going to belabor his time on that unless he would like so. And it's in our board policy that we currently have. And again, that will be on the website. But the key to the whole situation where 10 years is addressed is it says that a person has practiced surveying. Practiced surveying. Well, by our definition of surveying, in order to practice surveying, you must be licensed. Okay, by definition, okay, in our statute. So we have 3 criteria that someone can fall into that. Criteria number 1 says persons not in possession of a current valid license to practice land surveying in any jurisdiction other than Tennessee and in the absence of any other qualifying circumstances, such as practice as a land surveyor under legitimate exemption, are not eligible for registration under this provision. Okay, that means anybody out of state can't come in here and we allow them to apply. Okay, that wouldn't be fair to anybody in state. The second one says any person who has practiced land surveying, which means that they're licensed, according to TCA 6218-102-3, under a legitimate exemption such as employment by an agent of the federal government, not requiring licensure, to provide surveying services, and having obtained at least 10 years of experience of a standard satisfactory to the board in such capacity, are eligible to apply for registration. Okay? So in other words, if you were working for the federal government as a surveyor, and our state does not require you to be licensed, and you can prove to the board that you've done what needs to be done, then the board could approve an application for that individual. Okay, that's a federal exemption that all states have. That's out of our control. Any person who has obtained a license as a land surveyor in another jurisdiction, okay, if you're licensed in Georgia, for example, okay, that do not meet the minimum standards for reciprocity as required by TCA 6218-110 and having attained at least 10 years of experience of a satisfactory to the board in such capacity are eligible to apply for registration. So in other words, what it says, if you're licensed in Georgia and have been licensed for, say, 20 years, for example, and you want to apply in Tennessee and come take the test, if you have that 20 years of experience waives the BS degree requirement that we have.
Like, if you have a license in a state and the requirements to get that license are not as stringent as
Had to have a license plus the 10. It's a license plus. For example, in our last application review, we had a gentleman, I think from South Carolina, I believe it was, that applied, and he had just became licensed. He'd been licensed like 2 years, so he could not qualify to take our examination.
a license in a state that doesn't require a degree? Or do you have a license there? That's an inferior license to us. Bring that license plus 10 years licensed practice.
10 years practice.
Before they got licensed, that's 10 years after licensure.
Because of the definition of the practice of land surveying. That's the key.
That is the, quote, 10-year rule, quote, as we interpret. That's in another jurisdiction.
Another jurisdiction.
That's not in Tennessee. And
Thank you very much for coming, Mr. Cochran. In just a moment, Mr. Mansfield, and we're going to review your file now before we address you. Okay, Mr. Mansfield, would you like to address the board? Good morning, sir. We hope not.
I understand. I was listening in on the previous gentleman. I understand about what I believe to have been the 10-year rule, and that is what I applied under. I don't have a 4-year degree. I have a 2-year degree in surveying. I've taken various other courses. Person who submits evidence satisfactory to the board, so I was here to talk today about my experience and education is satisfactory to you. Also, since I've applied, I think Donna brought up my experience verification for the last survey I worked for 11 years prior to. I just gave the last 2 years of experience verification.
Let me say, Mr. Mansfield, if I may, first of all, thank you for coming. Secondly, your plight, having sit and listened through the previous discussion with the other gentleman, is a little different than his. All under the same scenario. You, the other gentleman, have licenses in 2 states. If I read your, okay.
Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina.
Okay. The application I have only says north and south, so you must just read.
Okay, I might have just not put Georgia on it. Was there an extra spot for it?
No, not really.
Okay, that's probably why I didn't stick it on there.
When did you get your Georgia license?
I guess it was.
It shows here you got North Carolina in 2008, South Carolina in 2009.
All right, Georgia would have been 2010, so 2 years, 3
Okay.
years ago.
Your situation.
Yeah.
Your situation is you're licensed in another jurisdiction, plural. Background educationally does not meet our criteria, okay? So in order to consider your application, you fall under the policy that I just read a while ago that says you are licensed in another jurisdiction and you have practiced surveying as a licensee for 10 years. In other words, to say, if you were licensed in 2008 in North Carolina, in 2018 you'd be able to apply and take the examination in the state of Tennessee by the board's interpretation of the statutes. I realize that's probably not what you wanted to hear.
5 more years is what you'd be
Yes.
looking for.
Yes, sir. That's where you're at. I mean, you ain't different from the other gentleman. You know, time will get you in the door because you're already a licensee and you are practicing in another jurisdiction.
Are they? You said they're changing the code. Like, I think you said you had a meeting yesterday about changing
All we
what's
did was
listed out.
update the policies yesterday. Is
Okay.
all we did yesterday.
And that's what Mr.
Yeah.
Lingerfeld was.
The policy that I read is the policy that we had crafted a little while back, and all we did was just go through and double check and update all these. All the policy is just basically a written definition that we can we're now going to put.
Interpretation of the Tennessee state law.
Right, and I think that's where I'm getting hung up is their interpretation of it, because anytime you get into legalese, not English. Sorry.
Well, let me say this. Well, let me say this. In our application process and for licensees and so forth, we do have a section on reciprocity, but the board has to be satisfied. We have a charge that tells us that everybody should meet what our statutes say, and that is included in reciprocity. Okay, for example, had you had a BS degree in surveying, okay, just an example, and you were licensed in another jurisdiction, no problem, you'd have been approved. Do not reciprocate from the standpoint of giving a license to someone that's licensed in another jurisdiction. So, but you have to qualify based on our criteria if you're in another jurisdiction. So the fact that another jurisdiction has licensed you under different criteria than we use is where your stumbling block is. Okay? North Carolina has licensed you because you had a 2-year degree and X amount of experience. Basically.
Yeah, and I wasn't trying to hang my hat on the licenses. I was trying to more go off of the experience I have.
Right.
My experience has mostly been in a supervisory position, not like a party chief or thing. I was given more responsibility than most get the opportunity to get to do, and that's why I tried to get my license verification to prove that. That's where I was going.
But I think you'll find from the problem we face in surveying across multiple jurisdictions is the difference in what their criteria is that they require. One state may allow strict experience with no education. Another state may allow, like North Carolina, for example, they allow experience, high school with a long time experience, then they allow a 2-year degree with less experience, then they allow a 4-year degree with lesser experience. So, in other words, you have that scenario. And then in Tennessee, we have the BS degree, okay, with some experience. So other states have other combinations. We don't have, as the engineers do, the engineers have more of a uniform playing field from state to state. So it's very easy to, by comity or reciprocity, to become licensed in another jurisdiction because that field is so level for engineers. For surveyors, we're kind of all over the place. We're trying to do a better job with that, but that's where all the jurisdictions are. Everybody looks at things different. So we're charged to maintain our statute when we get applications, and that's what we're trying to do, is to meet the statute says with an application. And like I say, you're fortunate that you do have a license in another jurisdiction. And you will have an upcoming opportunity. And your opportunity would have been sooner than later if your educational background conformed to our requirements. The door's not all the way closed. It's still pretty open.
One of two things: either the 5 years, which will give you the 10 years. Quickest with you would be the easiest way, the quickest way to get licensed in Tennessee, or to be allowed to sit for the exam. Thanks, and congratulations on being licensed in these other jurisdictions.
I originally cut my teeth up in Connecticut and got into surveying up there. Transferred to a South Carolina office, and that's where I went back to school at Greenville Tech. to get the 2-year degree in surveying, and then proceeded to South Carolina and Georgia. I've heard the 4-year degree a couple of times, and yeah, I missed my window back when the opportunity was there, and I'm in a good position now. I'm owner of a land surveying company and very busy, so unfortunately I just don't have the.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for your time.
Uh-huh.
Next week, 10:30.
Take about a 10-minute break, Mr. Northcutt.
Wild bears live in the forest? Yes, sir.
We will take about a 10-minute recess and reconvene shortly thereafter. I'll give you a picture to look at. We'll start our meeting back. The members will review the paperwork for Mr. Jason Berry. Ask you to come forward just shortly, so let us review, please.
I doubt it.
Hey, Mr. Berry, if you'd be so kind to come forward, please.
In my, not really. Takes. I applied under the 10-year rule for the application for licensure of this professional. Understanding that y'all's interpretation or the board's interpretation of that rule changed very close to when I was applying. And actually the application I had, can you explain to me the change and why I would not get those 10 years? Seems like if I started working on this a long time ago, when I got out of college in 2000, I could have gone back at that point in time and got more hours. But there was another rule at that time. It says if you work under a licensed land surveyor, any person working under the licensed land surveyor can prove to the board they've had 10 years of experience. They can apply to take the exams, basically, to do that. And it just kind of seems a little, I kind of want to know my options, I guess, is kind of, I've spent all these years going about it when I said, okay, well, I'm making money and I'm doing this and everything's working out good. And, it was like, well, now it's kind of cost prohibitive and family prohibitive to go back to school for, I know it's only 12, 14 hours, but still it's kind of puts a notch in my kind of not really understanding where the transition from any person with 10 years in experience to where the interpretation of that rule actually changed, and would I still fall underneath?
Adequately addressed it last time. I'm going to let him do it again.
Jason, there was never a 10-year rule. Let me tell you how this came about, and you weren't here for same type thing came up. Here's what happened. When was it? In 1997, the legislature passed for the surveyors the requirement to have a BS degree, and if you had that BS, our additional education if you were in a related field, and then you had to take plus some extra hours and that type of thing. When that legislation was passed in 97, it was then determined that from that point and for 6 years, those surveyors that were in the pipeline at the point that the degree was passed, the requirement for the degree was passed, responsible charge taken care of and could make application to take the exam under that 6 year. After that time, everything had to go back and revert to a BS degree. Okay. As it approached the end of the 6 year period, surveyors being as they were, whatever it might be, the board at that time said, we will extend that 6-year rule for 4 more years. Hence, guess what? They call that the 10-year rule. But it was only to go for the 10-year total period. There was never a 10-year rule that was ever put in place. I was on the committee when I worked with the board and the legislature to get the BS degree into place. And once that was put into place, that the committee obviously worked with the university, because that was the university that said, all right, we're going to get the ABET. So with that in place, and we had a place to go and get the BS degree in surveying and mapping, we had a 6-year rule in place that says, okay, if you have 6 years experience, 4 more years. But after that 4-year period, they never Lingerfeld came on the board, and we started looking at these things, and I came on the board. And so as we talked with our counsel, our legal counsel here about this thing, he said, I don't see anything that odd that way.
And in the rule book, it actually says
Application.
have a 10-year and an application.
Yeah, on the application, it did say 10-year or
Brought it in, but the rule book from 2000, okay, it says there is a rule. It says any person, and it says any person who can prove to the board. I can actually go get it. It's in the truck. That would stall things, but. Person who submits satisfactory evidence to the board that such person has practiced surveying for not less than 10 years shall be exempt from provisions of subdivision B1 7 and then 9 in 1972, chapter 578.
And you read correctly the statute. The key in what 3 words, and those words are practiced surveying. That's the key. Look, also in this same statute, you will find under the definition of practiced surveying that you must be licensed in order to practice. That's the key to that language, is you must be licensed in order to have practiced. Okay?
Now, let me take another step back. In 1997, I was in college for engineering. Prior to that, there wasn't this BS degree rule. At that time, well, actually in 1997, when exactly did, because I remember, like, somewhere, I was in a surveying class in Chat State, and I remember at that year, which I think was 2001 or something, they said, look, boys, you better get into it if you've been practicing, or if you've been working under a licensed land surveyor. This is the last year you can submit a plat, and do this.
97, you had 6 years.
6 years, which would have
The
been.
statute says on the opposite page of what you read from, effective July 1, 2003. Unless you met that section that you read.
Which means you'd have to be licensed prior to that.
No. Prior to the BS degree becoming in place, if you met the experience that was required prior by the 1st of 2003, which at that time was 6 years, you would have been allowed. That's why the instructors were telling us at Chattanooga State, that's why we had a huge influx. I mean, we had hundreds of people come take the test at that time because they knew the door was closed.
Telling me that if I had 6 years of experience, progressive experience, throughout, so and took the exam. That time.
In a position of responsible charge.
Right.
Dad had you working, you
Right.
were doing everything for Dad, and he had.
See, our language changed with the BS degree. The language changed from responsible charge to progressive. Now we have to look at progressive.
I understand. I'm just here to kind of see my options and kind of have it.
Well, you know, if I might for just a moment, when we reviewed your application, we saw that you'd applied under the 10-year rule, but we also saw that you were a degreed engineer. So we went through, and you had filled out the paperwork for the application. We went through and examined the coursework that you sent to us of surveying that you had taken through this educational experience. The problem that we came up with was we only found one course in what we call List 1. Hours to sit for the examination with an engineering degree, you have to have 18 hours in List 1. Other hours can be in List 2 or List 3. But you had all kinds of List 2 and List 3 hours. You know, clearly from your educational background, you know, all of that's good, except you just didn't meet that 15 hours for that avenue. So we as a board were trying to provide you every avenue, every option that we could under statute to get you to take the examination. But you didn't qualify under what we're here discussing on the 10-year side of things because of not being licensed somewhere else. And then you fell slightly short, which in this case was 15 hours. And if there's courses that we've missed in this transcript, we'll certainly give you credit for them if you can point them out to us. I mean, because it's clear that, you know, you're interested in background, and those are the kind of criteria for folks that we want to be licensed in the state of Tennessee. But at the same token, I hope you appreciate that this board is governed by what the statute says, and we have to be able to fit your application into that statute. And we are certainly trying every way in the world to get you in that door, but we just haven't found enough pieces to the puzzle to finish the qualification.
Like 15 hours, and if that's all that is, and you can take, obviously you've completed your degree and everything, so you got all that out of the way. Worked for the gentleman last year that completed his. Yes, but if you can get
They've
that,
actually closed that. I took some courses. I think it's the University of the Metropolitan.
State and
Yeah,
yes, sir.
but that professor retired and they closed that department, so they don't have that option anymore. And I talked to it was a year or two ago, but I talked to the lady up at ETSU, talking about having video corresponding courses and actually trying to set up with something with Chat State. I don't know where that went to.
I can tell you that the University of Wyoming has distance learning. My son took some of those courses, and they were very good courses. The thing I would encourage you to do is on our website, we have a list of surveying courses and what list 1, 2, and 3 are. And I know you've seen it because you filled the form out when you did your application. So the thing I'd encourage you to do is to go back and look at your transcript and what these definition of courses are, and see if maybe one have missed or the board has missed something that would qualify you. And if we have, we'll certainly give you credit for it.
Absolutely.
You know, hey, I mean, you're on the threshold, you know, and then see what that number is. Right now, we think it's lacking of 15 is what we think today. That could be something less than that if something else is found, okay? I've looked through it again quickly as you've been talking, and that doesn't always give it justice. And you're the one that took the courses, so you know what was in the course. So look over that list, look over your transcript, and if you have something else, just let us know, and we'll look at it and give you a response. Have no problem with that. And then that way you can see what are these things that maybe you can explore and maybe get online, and hopefully in a short period of time, you'll be back and taking the test.
Finish that up.
Yeah, finish it up.
Taking Dad down here to the big city.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, sir. Okay, Donna, pardon me? 11, okay. Okay.
Okay.
Fordford,
Yeah.
Donna. That's two separate things right there. Cochran, I see you came back. Is there anything else that you might want to address the board?
I don't know.
Welcome. We appreciate your attendance.
Prepared to sit in front of three y'all and argue one way or the other.
This one is licensed
in South Carolina. Lacks total experience as far as this right here is concerned.
Hey, Mr. Fosberg, would you like to come to the podium, please, and address the board?
I'm a licensed surveyor in the state of South Carolina, and the company that I work for asked me 2 years ago. I used to work for BP Barber and Associates. They were actually bought out by URS Corporation, which is a international company. They asked me if I would try to get my license in the state of Tennessee. They're looking to have, somebody licensed in 7 states throughout the Southeast. So I told them that was something that I was interested in, and that I would look into it. So I applied. The first time I applied was in January of 2012. My application was denied because I don't have a 4-year degree. I have 3 bachelor's or 3 associate's degrees. I have an associate in arts, associate in civil engineering, and associate in architectural engineering. So my application was denied, and I was told that I had 107 months of experience, which was not sufficient under the 10-year experience law. I took that to mean that I would need 13 more months, which would give me 120 months, which would give me 10 years of experience. I reapplied in January of 2013 and was denied again, and again was told that I did not qualify under the 10-year rule, and I don't have a 4-year degree, obviously. So I spoke with my boss, who has been with the company for 30 years. He's the South Carolina governor for NSPS. He spoke with Alan Crawford, who I believe is the NSPS governor for Tennessee. Alan recommended that I come and speak with y'all and, see where we can go.
Thank you very much for doing so. I know you've made a long trip, and we certainly appreciate it. Where we're at application is basically just what you said. You don't qualify under our degree requirements, and you don't qualify under our 10-year requirement. However, you have the potential to qualify under the 10-year requirement. And when I say that is because you are licensed in another jurisdiction, okay? That's the key, but you have to practice after you're licensed. So in other words, if your first license was in 2010 in any jurisdiction, from that point in time, you would have to have 10 years of experience because you don't qualify under our educational side. Okay?
I kind of thought that looking at the educational requirements, that the non-bachelorette option, this is what I filled out my application from, and it says that any person submitting evidence satisfactory to the board that they have worked as a licensed land surveyor or under a licensed land surveyor for at least 10 years will be exempt. I thought that I qualified under that non-bachelorette option.
What statute are you referring to? I thought you were going to be reading C. section, but I don't think it was worded the same as I anticipated.
That's
Got an old instruction sheet that was.
It's the old instruction sheet? Okay. Okay.
Done.
Off of an exam instruction sheet that's old for whatever reason that we may need to check. Oh, it has been taken off the website? Okay, that's good. That's good. But between the two times that you applied, the board was having difficulty with multiple 10-year applications. I thought it was necessary to craft a policy I'll say the board has been somewhat remiss in getting that proper. The website is our vehicle of publication now, as in most things in the internet world. So just yesterday, this doesn't help your plight, but just factual, just yesterday, we updated every board policy that this board has. At the started yesterday, there was 19, and I think we ended up with about 6 or 7 because several of them didn't apply. But the one that does apply is the policy, which is a clarification of the section that you're trying to apply under. And the part that you would fall under would be item 3 of our policy, or under that policy. It says any person who has obtained a license as a land surveyor in another jurisdiction, that's you, under circumstances that do not meet the standards of reciprocity required by TCA 6218-110. Reciprocity says you qualified in that jurisdiction by the same criteria that we specify. Okay? Which, as you know, you didn't. Okay? Because we require BS. You had an AS with experience in South Carolina that got you qualified. Okay? So you don't qualify. And having obtained at least 10 years' experience of a standard satisfactory to the board in such capacity and are eligible to apply for registration under this provision. Let me get the right word out. So what that means from us to you is in 2020, when you've worked 10 years with a South Carolina license, no matter how many other licenses and jurisdictions you have, this board would allow you to come and sit for the examination. But because you don't qualify educationally is what keeps you between now and then. You meet the educational requirements, then you could certainly qualify to take the examination sooner. But otherwise, you wouldn't be able to take it until then. I don't want you to come here today to hear, but that's the way it is. I explained to a gentleman that was here just earlier, the problem we face in surveying is a little different than engineering. In engineering, their playing field is pretty level. You get a degree in engineering, you take your exam in state A, you get your license, your PE license, you apply to state B. They do it basically by comedy because you had your degree, you passed your exams. They basically give you your license. Well, in surveying is different because we didn't intend to be that way, but that's just the way it's worked out. States that allow experience only. You have states that allow a combination of experience and associate's degree. So we're still sort of all over the place. And until we kind of get our playing field more level across the United States, or even just in the South, comedy licensure is not something you get a lot of. I got my license in Georgia several years ago, and I had been licensed for almost 30 years at that time, and I had to go take her test. You know, I felt like I qualified for comedy, but they said no. I had to go take a test. That's kind of the situation that you're in. If it had qualified under the reciprocity part of having equivalent education, we would allow you to sit for our examination, to our exam.
All right, well, I appreciate it.
What do you like having your BS degree?
And I've never done anything more than, gone to a technical college and gotten an associate's degree. I did that. I pretty much did that, went and got those 2 associate's degrees in South Carolina because they were getting ready to switch over to the 4-year degree. And I was interested in getting my license, and I, took time off from work and went back to school just for that reason, to get into the...
South Carolina now, they require a 4-year degree now.
They do require a 4-year degree now, yes, sir.
Degree in some field and what have you, and maybe you could include.
All right, well, I appreciate y'all's time. All right, thank you.
While we're on the exam scenario, we also have a question that was submitted by an applicant, which is the last package that you have in your package. It's a Mr. Snodderly, if I pronounced his name correct. He didn't qualify for the 10-year rule. Or did he have 24 semester hours under Category B? So apparently, according to his application in civil engineering from the University of Tennessee at Knoxville, master's degree at UT Knoxville. So his question is to the board. He says, I recently submitted me an accurate number of education hours needed. I would also like to be informed if the needed classes are from level 1, 2, or 3. Apparently this gentleman is in college still, required to get enough hours to qualify. Do you have his folder, Donna? Actually have it attached here.
This might be easier to see.
I think we, when we reviewed this, we marked that.
this help.
Response we need to give to this gentleman is that of additional hours from list one. all he lacked. He has a degree in civil engineering. He has provided a list that's not entirely complete, but the list that we have reviewed hours. List 1 requires 18 hours with an additional, or the category. He has a couple of courses on his list here that we have no knowledge of what the course syllabus is. Include our application questions and meetings. We have several other things to do. Guess the next thing we need to do, Rob, is let's try to get to this rule making thing here and see if we can forward with it and see where we're at from there.
You have your documentation from yesterday.
Yes, sir.
First of all, I'd like y'all to take your draft notice here and let's look at it and see if and get it in its final. After the board is satisfied with that and votes on it, we'll talk about regulatory flexibility.
Okay.
Diego, do you have everything you need? He does? Okay. Start at the beginning here if you want, under amendments.
Let's see.
We've had no further apps.
No, I don't think so.
Nobody's had anything else to say about it? Okay.
I talked to a couple of folks, but nobody has said anything as far as comments. The president, he said he was going to put some comments together, but
Well, let's crack on then.
what we've got here. So what you have done here,
That's going to be the final.
whatever is in red in here was underlined in the
Correct.
paper copy. Okay.
Right. I've just taken that draft that we had that's on the pad and put it onto the correct form,
Yeah.
Secretary of State form.
Let me just say this as we get into it. The most important thing in my mind that we've got to address is the number of PDAs. That's the most. Okay, so let's go through this thing. Let's go through it kind of a page at a time and see if there's anything that we want to change.
Shouldn't be two. I got a copy. What is subsection E?
has been language that has come from NCWS. Actually in Rule 0820-05-.04.
Accordance with Rule 0820-05.04.
Basic requirements. Licensee is required to obtain an equivalent of 30 hours per biennial
But I thought that we were going to take a look at 12 hours per year, but of those 24, it had to be hours of ethics and standards of practice, one in 1 year, hours in 1 year and two in another. Didn't matter when they got it, as long as they.
Question, Bodes, does this board want to change the
Well, that's equal to 15 a year.
30 is equal to 15 a year.
Right.
And what we're discussing is going to 12.
12 a
which
year.
would equal, be 24.
That's what you want to do.
That's what we'd like to say, and then, because it's got to go through all the process and see, it could eventually change back, but I think that's what we want to recommend, is 24. That paragraph, it says a maximum of 15 PDHs may be carried forward, so we want to change the 15 to 12.
15 to 12, that's right.
That way that they work hand in hand.
Every biennial.
It's 1 year's worth of PDHs
So
is
then
what
we
you
need
can
to-
carry over.
Per biennial.
Forward to the subsequent renewal period, which just means if you end with 2 years today, okay, and you had 36 hours, okay, 24 counts for the 2 years that you did, 12 goes to the next renewal period. So you just need 12 more to cover that 2-year window, that biennial window, okay?
$45, and we used 30 for in a renewal period, and you had.
We're not creating a new monster here or reinventing the wheel. It's the same exact thing. Actually, we're
I remember. It's just,
Paragraph, we also need to change 30 to 24.
Registrants not required to satisfy continuing education's requirements. Requisite for the initial 1-year period.
What that says, Rob, is whatever year you get licensed in, you don't have to have any PDHs. That's the first year of a biennial, or if it's a second year of a biennial, the year that you're licensed. First year of the biennial, that's correct. You get a free year the first one,
Second
and
year.
you'd only need 12 to renew at the biennial end of the biennial term.
That's
okay, because the first one was free. But the next
Ever-
biennial, then you'd be right with everybody else.
If we ever get rolling registration
Right.
or renewal, then I guess we could. But it expires at the same time.
Yeah, that's,
Everybody's on the
I've been
argument.
trying to change that for years because it's feast or famine for us. We
Right.
a lot of revenue every other year.
but you're the same way as surveyors, right?
No,
Rolling
they
renewal.
roll.
Yeah, and I really do wish that we had rolling.
I do too.
I think that would really help us. I don't know what that would take to.
It certainly
To do
Big
streamlines our
legislation. I've put it in every year.
accounting. Yeah, it streamlines our accounting.
It would sure help things, and I realize from the budgetary standpoint to keep this.
License just before everybody renews, so their license expires with everybody else's potentially just weeks after they got it.
Okay.
And we can do about it right now, so let's just move on.
Okay, we're into the conversion table. Table is, it's just what it is. Go through the conversion table, we get down to item G.
Okay.
That we talked about before when we went through this, active participation in professional and technical societies. Okay. That would mean, as an example, president of TAPS, for example. They would be able to get H's for doing that. I see that's being worthy. But do we need to expand upon that so that we don't get somebody that's just a TAPS member sending in 2 PDHs just because they signed a check? That's the only concern I have right there. I don't want to have that create a problem for. I mean, at the end of the day, we have authority. How we evaluate that. Have authority to evaluate that. It's just that we're just going to we'll have to kind of watch it. Is all. Because we do 100% audit, you know, that's and because this is going to be a little bit different continuing education rule Anna is used to, we'll just have to watch it so that we can communicate with her that when she checks these things that we just don't take everything. David has a good idea if we put the word officer.
I was thinking.
Yeah.
If
We'll
you're
give
an
David
officer.
credit for that, Rob, because he thought it first. You get all kinds of credit. Let's give David some credit here. Okay.
How about serving as an officer in professional and technical society?
Now, the next question bodes, do we also want to address at this point in time the fact that we as the board have the ability to serving when you address it in that manner? Right. But I don't want it to.
Time we're actually here, which would be next an hour to it, then you'd have to be here for that.
I'm saying,
up to-
we may want to leave that one alone and
Yeah.
just leave it the way we do it.
I think that's probably a better thing to do.
Okay.
Because you're right. If you affix an hour to it, then you're going to stipulate that they have to be checked to make sure that they're there, and attend. It doesn't mean that maybe they shouldn't be checked to see if they're here, but obviously when we come in and we have a parking place and we attend this meeting and what have you, we're here. But still, I think.
There are many markouts in it, so. Now, let's go on down to 0820 0507. Bob has a note here in number 1. It says, attorney's note, if
AU in the rule We can't just change it whenever we want to.
So the only value we have is the $25, so we have to leave that. So we need to leave the $25 and strike the established by the board.
Attorney General's not going to let us just have our way with fees like that.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Because, I mean, that's what the statute that was crafted for retired surveyors says, so we're in compliance with that.
If we're in compliance with that, let's just leave it like that at 25.
I mean, it would be nice if we had a little better leeway with our fees, but we just do not.
General Assembly wouldn't like it either when we went up to explain the rules.
Thank you very much. Where does that go? Right here. Thank you very much, Donna. Okay, now, staying in the same rule, 07, A says biannual PDH requirement by the number of years, status up to a maximum of 30 PDHs. If we change the other to 24, that needs to be 24. On that one, while we're there, do we want to include the language about the ethics and standards? Hours including the 4 hours ethics and standards. So in other words, this is somebody that's either been retired or inactive for, let's say 5 years or something, and they want to get their license back.
Get their license back, then I think they need to have the 4 hours of ethics and standards.
Right, so we need to take this then.
Or every other surveyor to have that.
Right.
And if this individual, then he needs to conform to what all other surveyors can.
Rob, if we can, I'd like to take the third sentence from 08200403 under basic requirements. It says a minimum of 4 PDHs shall be earned by successfully completing a course or activity that has content areas focused on surveying ethics practice. I'd like to add that to this section here. That way it puts this person that's either inactive or retired with the same requirement as the active licensee.
Requirements of Rule 082004.
That's fine. Just
Well,
as
if it
long
makes
as we
that
get
reference to it.
that dialogue in there, that's fine.
That way, if we ever change this rule, it automatically.
Okay. That actually would save us another change in the future. Basically, you're going to say satisfaction of the biennial PDH requirement multiplied by the number of years of inactive or retired status must meet or shall meet or whatever the right words are. Or is pursuant to. Oh, it's a one-time deal. It's a one window is all they're doing.
You wanted to come back from being Hired, you have to do the previous renewal period.
Yes. Basically, that's what it is.
Right.
But if you've only been retired a year or inactive a year, you only do.
You don't have to do 1 year. That's correct.
That's what it is.
Right. That was what Donna and Rob were alluding to over there is, for example, let's say that you were inactive for 10 years, okay? Well, if you're inactive for 10 years, the board is only going to ask you to get your PDHs caught up for the last 2 years. The prior biennial, basically. So the maximum the board would require you to have would be one biennial renewal, which would be 24 hours. $120, you know. Yeah, if it's 12 hours a year and you're out 10 years, you could be required to have 120. That's not going to be productive.
Maximum because if somebody was inactive for
Right. Anyway, the board, under the next paragraph, has the authority to require an individual that is trying to get their license back, either from retirement or inactive status. If it's been a significant period of time, the board can require them to take reexamination. And that's what the next one says. And in that paragraph, Rob, near the end of the second sentence, there should be a space between prior and to. Okay. Like I'm an English major.
A new word has been formed.
spell check didn't catch prior to. Well, that thinks that's a word.
Part of what you were addressing, Nicole, is actually under paragraph 2 also. Okay. All right, here's another one. This is called the David Cagle Rule. We know this one for you, David.
Okay.
Under 0820 05.09, hardships and exemptions. Item number C. I had a lot of conversation about this. Currently, it says those who are 65 years of age or older who have also had 25 more years of active registration, provided that the adequate supporting documentation is furnished to the board, which means a lot of thought. As I approach this would be nice. But after a lot of thought and a lot of conversation I've had with a lot of folks, I think we need to remove this. Take a law, but I didn't make this. We gave it to you, David, one day when you wasn't here.
That's right. Said you must be 65, so.
If you've been licensed for 25 consecutive years.
You can't get your license when you're 64. And haven't had 15 years of experience, you still got to do it.
Well, the two footballs here was, one was to eliminate the requirement for the over 65 totally, or to reduce the requirement over 65. That was kind of, or the third one would be leave it alone. I get an awful lot of comments from the younger surveyors that hey, got to take them old guys got to take them, and they probably need them worse than I do.
Usually
heard
when
that
they
a
get to
bunch.
be 65, they won't feel that way.
They may
Right,
not
they
feel
probably
that
won't.
way after they've taken 40 years up.
David and I can attest to
What does
that.
some of the other professions do?
This
What do engineers do? I'm not sure.
What do engineers do, Rob?
I don't know. I know this language came from
Have
Mississippi.
exemptions like
This
that.
language came from Mississippi. That's where it came from.
Period.
They just keep on taking.
Until the engineer just fades away.
Yeah.
License are not going to let
Frankly,
me
I don't have a problem with it. I mean,
I got to take it, so y'all should take it too.
Thanks, Rob.
Isn't there a
You're a
law
danger
though
to the
that
public.
says
You don't-
if they were
you need
born
to take
on or
it.
before
exactly right.
Yes.
January 1st, 1928?
Yeah. Currently, ours said 1928.
Right. Wouldn't that have to be changed?
We're actually doing that here. We're eliminating that.
Is that a rule?
It's in the rule.
Rule,
Okay.
yeah.
That's what I was wondering.
So we want to eliminate paragraph C then under 820.05.09.
That's up to your all's pleasure. My notion, based on the things that I have.
I'll leave it in here for now and see what the public says at the hearing, because we can take it out after the hearing.
Can we?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're not married
No,
to this.
no, it
This-
isn't a done deal.
This is just getting it in the form that you approve, so I can file the notice and we can have the rulemaking hearing. I might come in here, or 100 people might come in here and say no.
We'd probably take it out anyway, but if you leave it in there,
We're going to post this on the website, I think, aren't we?
Yeah.
For all to see, and we'll probably get comments on this. So
hope so.
let's see what happens.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, that's right.
People got to live.
Pardon me?
I've never seen an exemption like this in any other profession.
Like I say, that language came from the Mississippi surveying law. Mr. Shannon Tidwell's group.
The argument for taking it out would be that it protects the public by making it be perceived that there are some out there that aren't up on the current.
Out there that no matter how many seminars they've been to,
Yeah,
they're not up on
It's
it.
just not sticking.
So whatever the pleasure.
Doesn't matter to me. I mean, we can see what happens with it at the hearing, or we can.
Dave or
Fine, me either way.
tie a rock to it.
I'm 73.
73, make it true.
Make the age 72.
And born in Hardin County, or
Make it 100. Those who are 100
yeah.
years of age.
Leave it and see if it'll swim.
That'd be all right.
Okay. All right, we'll leave it and see if it'll swim. Okay. Really no change in team. Approval of programs. Paragraph 2, we got a hard one. It says, no sponsor may provide any continuing education courses without prior approval from the board. That, I think, is a hard one to battle because of, out-of-state courses and all this kind of stuff. That's where Galen, there's where we really need to have that fee
Yes.
for these sponsors. Because of the way the state does with dollars.
Legislature's not real friendly about
No.
fees right now.
there's no, I looked yesterday when you were discussing that there's no statutory setup right now for you to set a fee structure for course providers. There's nothing, you don't have any language that says or it has the authority to set fees for course providers. The way you do for renewal fees, and you have references for all of that. I didn't see anything that said you have the authority to set sponsors or course providers. I could be wrong, you know your statutes very well, but I didn't see anything that said that you have the authority to do that.
Yeah, I think you're 100% right. I think we lack the authority, but I guess what we were reaching out to.
Legislative change. We have, potentially several legislative changes that may need to be made, but that's all got to happen, horse before the cart.
But, we basically only have one statute that allows us to do fees. Now, I do want to look at that, and it's probably what you looked at yesterday. It says 62-18-125 says schedule of fees. The board shall establish a schedule of fees for the following categories: examination fee, licensing fee, renewal fee. Then it says the board shall, in compliance with the Uniform Administrative Procedures Act, filed in Title IV, Chapter 5, promulgate, that's my favorite word, I can't say that word at all, but I know what it means. Promulgate, or whatever, however you want to say it, necessary rules and regulation to establish the schedule of fees authorized by this section. Which I don't think that lets us get out of that box, does it, Rob?
Silent about any other kinds of fees, but it says you will establish.
In other words, that gives us the authority to change those numbers. Is what that's what that tells me.
For those three items.
For those three items, and only those three items. Then we have other fees in 0820-1-.05, which basically emulates that. Authority comes from that. For application, examination, certificate of registration, and annual renewal, which I think those were modified from what's in this blue book. They were modified, I believe, into the novel that we now have. Those were modified. And we actually are going to have to modify those again with the advent of CBT. The last time that they were modified was in 2002, and they were inclusive of everything that we had the authority to do at that time. I'm of the same opinion that Galen is. It would certainly be nice if we could charge continuing education course providers a fee, and then basically we'd be able to have monies to services that they provide. Which, at the end of the day, if you look at it, the advisory board has as much of a daunting task as our exam writer does, because of all the coursework that they review and so forth. Mm-hmm. So that's part of the justification of actually having a fee.
A nice parallel for you. The courses for appraisers are set up in a way that I think you were getting to yesterday, so I was actually kind of hoping you had the statutory authority to do it, because when courses come in for the appraiser commission, the course providers pay a fee, and the education is reviewed, the board review get it reviewed. The courses are, in a way, processed much like the license applications. They have a session code, like a license number, and there's a report that issues automatically on our license data. So when the licensees click on our website, there's a report that's automatically generated. I don't have to do anything at all. And the licensees can click on it, and it has license numbers, just almost like surveyors.
Bar numbers, yeah.
Right. The courses have their own license numbers on the side of the screen, and there's a period of time that the course is approved for, a 2-year window, where, yeah, just like a license. So, you can offer this course as many times as you want to during this 2-year window, and the course and the instructor is approved to do it during this 2-year window so that it doesn't, go on forever, and the course is reviewed periodically for, consistency and quality and information.
Appraisers, you have language in your rules or in statutes that
I looked.
Can you get us that language?
I can get it for you. And that, once you have that authority, then it makes it's an easier transition, and it's more automatic, and then the licensees can use that as a tool. Like, it's just a tool on the website, and they just look it up. It's available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
We had that, didn't we, Donna? Didn't we have, wasn't there a list of CERs on there for a while?
I have a current list. It was on the website, but I took it off because it's not current. I've been trying to figure out how to get.
I think that at the end of the day, Nicole, the processes that you're talking about with the appraisers board is virtually parallel with what Donna's been doing with our stuff, with the exception we don't really have the authority to charge that fee.
Yeah.
Right, and when they click on it on the website, all they would get into RBS or anything. Is that what you're saying yours does?
Well, the courses issue like a license. It's a profession code, and so the license are maintained for those courses. I mean, I shouldn't really call them a license, but the computer system maintains it. So I don't have to watch each individual person's license because the computer system maintains and has an sensibility to itself. Donna is maintaining that list, and it has. She's been maintaining a PDF file. It's a Word document, and then she's converting it as a PDF file and then posting it to the website, which means that if essentially she's the only one with that information, and all she's doing is uploading a report. And at any time, if the information isn't updated, or essentially she's the system to get that information on the website, and at any time she's the system that it could not get updated. So, if I go away or whatever, the appraiser, licensing, and education system takes care of itself. F file, I couldn't get at it, so that's not a good sustainable system, and we're going to work towards a different one.
I think that's what we're looking for, is a good sustainable system. Yeah.
Right.
We don't have the profession code for it like y'all do.
But we can get something like that as soon as we get this.
Because I think that the department would want that, consistency through the boards, and for simplicity and continuance.
And that's not an unachievable hurdle. That's not even an expensive hurdle. So I think we can get something like that set up where the computer system will automatically generate those course approvals for some period of time, and we can just get an automatic list, even if it's the Schedule 1, Schedule 2, Schedule 3 I don't know if I just called that just right, but I know that there's the schedule of the courses or categories of courses. Licensees, they could look them up and have automatic lists so that they would know 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, boom, 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 these are okay. And they could look them up and know which courses automatically.
At the approval of the board, as far as.
Have already met the
our
approval of the board.
Has been reviewed by the boards.
Right.
Like I say, that's what we're looking for, is to streamline it, get it simpler, and let it be more uniform with what goes on in the department.
And it just would make your reviews for your application processing, when you give them your approvals, that much faster. Like if you had to, when you do your approvals, if they had their course numbers all in the application, like, oh, that was course 4, this one was course 12. You had a course approval number written right on their application because they looked them up. You knew which course that was. You'd have it right there on the application. You knew it was already pre-approved. You pre-approved it. So.
Okay, all right, let's go ahead and finish here, because we're right at the very end of this. We just got a couple to go. We were concluding on 0820, 0512. Have our advisory committee to assist us to value the credit. I think that's all fine. The last one we have is number 14, which is comedy. Basically ask the registrant if they're in another jurisdiction to provide to the board in writing the following information. Basically all we're doing is asking them, here's the way that this works. What we ask them, right now today, Tennessee requires 15 hours. If a person licensed in North Carolina is also licensed in Tennessee, but they reside and they work in North Carolina, they are required to have 15 PDHs. So when their renewal for Tennessee comes up, they just simply need to submit in writing, as it says, to Tennessee that they have 15 hours in North Carolina. That qualifies them for Tennessee because they're outside of Tennessee. Now, if a person is licensed in Kentucky, they're required 8 hours, okay? Tennessee will grant them their 8 hours that Kentucky has granted them, but they will also require them 7 additional hours to meet the Tennessee PDH requirements. Basically what that says.
Or when this change.
Yes, it could be 4 hours if we went to 12. That's correct. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, in other words, going back to my example, if North Carolina required 15, Tennessee only required 12, they're still good. But Georgia requires 7.5, so they would need 4.5 in order to additional to qualify for Tennessee's renewal.
All Tennessee licenses will have the same requirements.
All this says. That's all it says. So that concludes the document, Rob. So what do you need us to do from here? Because I know that's the next thing, is because we have this economic impact and we have some questions to answer, so we'd like to go ahead and do those.
We'll just vote on approving this draft as amended.
Move.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second? Second. All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the rulemaking document as we have just went through it, so that Rob will be able to modify it and move it into the next step of the process. So all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise? Okay. Okay, Rob, you're next.
Right. This document, this paper document you have, it's not on your iPad. This is an updated one. Regulatory Flexibility Act, or the Economic Impact Statement. And then the introductory paragraph is that the Regulatory Flexibility Act requires that prior to initiating the rulemaking process, meaning before you file the notice, all agencies shall review all proposed rules, which you just did, and the effect that the proposed rules has on small businesses. The Act requires that each agency should employ a regulatory flexibility analysis utilizing accomplish the objectives of applicable statutes while minimizing any adverse. It just goes on to say that the impact of small businesses while remaining consistent with health, safety, and well-being. Methods should be as follows: the extent to which the rule or rules overlap, duplicate, or conflict with clarity and conciseness and lack of ambiguity in the rules, the establishment of flexible compliance and/or reporting requirements, establishment of friendly schedules or deadlines for compliance and/or reporting requirements, or of simplification of compliance or reporting requirements for small businesses, establishment of performance standards, as opposed to design. And eliminating unnecessary entry barriers or other effects that stifle entrepreneurial activity, curb innovation, or increase cost. Okay, there's a list of, and after that is just a brief summary of what we're going to do with the rules. So on the third page, bold title, Regulatory Flexibility Analysis, Methods of Reducing Impact of Rules on Small Businesses. Question 1. Duplicate or conflict with other federal, state, or local governmental. Already written some answers in here. You don't have to accept them if you don't want. It's just sort of a suggested answer. There will be no overlap, duplication, or conflict with other federal, state, or local governmental rules. The board is the sole authority for establishing minimum requirements for obtaining and maintaining a license for the profession. All of them, and you can vote as a block.
Let's
Okay.
do that, Rob.
Yeah, let's just do that.
Number 2, clarity, conciseness, and lack of ambiguity in the rules. And the answer, the rules are clear in purpose and intended application and are not subject to varying interpretation. Compliance and/or reporting requirements for small businesses. Regardless of size, all firms providing design services under regulation of the board in this state are subjected to the same minimum standards. Or friendly schedules or deadlines for compliance and/or reporting requirements. There's no variation in reporting requirements for surveying firms in Tennessee of any size. 5, consolidation or simplification of compliance or reporting. Not address the operation of surveying firms, only individual registrants. 6, performance standards for small businesses. Requires that surveying firms register with the board and does not issue practices of surveying firms. I don't know if we actually do that yet.
We don't do that yet because that's in rules of conduct, Rob. We have not got those amended.
Hoping we would be doing that by now, but we're not. So we're going to have to change that to
Eliminate only requires over to does. I think that'll take care of it.
Right. Number 7, barriers or other effects that stifle entrepreneurial activity, curb innovation. Amended rules proposed do not contemplate an impediment cost for providing surveying services.
That be AN, impediment? Okay.
You Want to vote on these 7, and then we'll move on to the governor's questions.
That's fine. Have any question on these? No, I think that's. If not, the chair will entertain a motion.
I move that we accept these rules.
Motion and a second to accept the questions and responses as read. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, Rob.
Right, now there's additionally some questions that the governor's office would like answered that follow, and it's the same procedure here. First question is, does the rule make it better to do business in Tennessee? Which answers yes, by updating continuing education requirements and aligning them with current law. Brought them up to the 2-year renewal instead of 1 year. Which protects consumers through advancing licensure of land surveyors to match national standards. Jobs in Tennessee. Yes, the amendments simplify reciprocity licensing in Tennessee.
Help me with that answer.
I was referring to the maintaining your Tennessee license when you're in another state, but probably doesn't do anything to it. I'm trying to think of another answer for this one. Does the rule make it easier to create jobs? I don't. Have to say that these rules don't have any direct effect on.
Excuse me.
Effective? Yes. Who does it affect? The proposed rules will affect all registered licensees of the board. I never quite understand. Positive move? Yes. Is it outcome-based? In essence, does it have a measurable positive outcome? Yes. The updates to continuing education requirements will improve the competence of the board's registrants as it advances its regulation to reflect current practices.
Chair will accept a motion to accept these. Motion is second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay.
Ready to move on to the next phase here.
Hopeful then that we may have a public hearing in August for the rules of conduct, and equally hopeful we might have one for the continuing education in October. That would be great. I said hopeful.
That would be the best thing, if we could have one in the next 2 meetings.
Okay. Talked about, we have a little time here left, going through the policies with David.
Yes.
So, I think you've got a list of those policies. What I'm going to do, I'm going to try it this way, and if this way don't work, we'll do something different. But, yes, sir. Okay, sir. That's perfectly fine.
It's good to see you, Mr. Cagle, again.
I'll tell you what, before you leave, if you will, Donna, well, I would like to, I know this potentially may not be your last meeting, Mr. Cagle, but it may be by your term. Of course, it all depends on when the governor reappoints. But notwithstanding that, I want to present you with this plaque from the other members of the board and the board staff, and thank you for from all of us for your work, and because I think you served 8 years on the board. Personally, tell you how much I appreciate your friendship.
All right, that's good.
If you'd send us all that on the email, we appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate it very much, and last meeting, but
Losing her voice and reason.
Don't believe it's your last meeting.
Hold your breath on that.
That's
We
right.
really appreciate you, Dave, very,
Well, I
very
don't
much.
know if this is the example, but the appraiser, the last time one of my appraiser board members' terms ended, served an additional 6 months on top of his 6
Well,
years.
Nancy just ended in June, and I didn't come on until January, so.
I've already been through that.
Yeah, David's been on the board at least 8 years, so.
It's like when you're a kid, they give you,
You make a
it's
career of it.
a year and then a pinch for good luck or whatever it was,
We'll see y'all in August at the either
Okay.
board meeting or Texas, whichever comes first.
Whoever
I think
comes
the board
first.
meeting's first.
Yeah, I think the
Yeah,
board meeting's
San
first, and
Antonio's
then
next.
San Antonio is next. Yeah.
We'll have a roommate.
That'd be great. That'd be great. Thank you, Rob. Okay, we're going to take just a little time here to go through these board policies because we want to make sure that that our other surveying member is in a concurrence with these. It's the simplest thing to do. We can just go through them one at a time, David. It won't take very long.
Okay.
And if you see something that you don't agree with, just flag it, and we'll just go ahead and talk about it right then and see what we need to do. Policy number 1, we deleted it in its entirety. So it no longer. The reason that most of these got deleted is because we already policy to clarify something that was basically clear to start with. So, and once this meeting is concluded, sometime in the next few weeks, Donna will be crafting a new document of our statements, and it'll go on our website, so everybody can see it. Policy number 2 was deleted. Policy number 3, all we did was change the effective date and add the words pursuant to the rule, which was 0820. Kept that one, and we also kept policy number 4 and did the same thing. We just put that rule in front of it. Is all we did there. Policy number 5, we eliminated the date.
Tim, policy number 5, that was the statute 6218, 109, and 110, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. I'm sorry, I didn't state those.
Yeah.
7, what we did there is we eliminated the date again. Modifying these, we wanted to get them more up in tune, that the dates were no longer important. It was the fact that we had the policy. So we put that pursuant to 6218-109, which was the policy there. Number 8, we deleted it in its entirety. 8, and we put it pursuant to the statute and the. Number 10, we eliminated it. 11, we eliminated it. Some of these things were sort of, we felt like yesterday when we reviewed them, sort of reactionary to something that may have come along. And number 12, on the drainage issue, we just left it alone at all. We didn't get the 10 out at all. We just left it. Number 13, we eliminated it in its entirety. Because number 14, we eliminated it altogether because we got left it alone because it's kind of a board opinion that we felt like we needed to keep. Number 16, we eliminated the second sentence of the first paragraph where it says, "It is the policy of this board." This one deals basically with non-monumentation surveys. We wanted to keep that in the policy, suggesting that the registrant, if they read the policy, that they do put the authority in the rule, but can understand that, hey, they didn't get a survey. We eliminated it in its entirety. Tennessee, we wiped out the biggest majority of them.
You did a lot of work there.
Well, we read every one of them and discussed every one of them and got guidance from Rob relative to how we need to look at them and so forth. Okay. Donna, you have any other business that you'd like to bring before us? Okay. Ms. Nicole? Okay. Hearing. Yes, sir.
Dennis?
Huh?
No, thanks.
Anyone on the board have any other business
No, sir. I
that
don't
we'd
think
like
so.
to discuss? We're here. We have one item remaining, which is the current item coming from our policies, is we need to determine how many PDHs that the board members be due credit for this meeting.
Yes.
Pleasure is
Preparation.
not any preparation, just our actual meeting time. And this is something we're going to start doing at each meeting. By my arithmetic, from starting late yesterday, we had an extended lunch, and then pardon me? Yeah, well,
Oh, I wouldn't- I wouldn't
David
hear.
would get 3 for today. Gail and I would get 8 because we attended both days. And of course, Sue doesn't need them.
All right, let me ask this. Do you have to-
Well, since we should have been doing this and we haven't been doing it, we're on new territory. So whatever.
What would help you?
Well, it doesn't matter either way.
I think you should document it just in case we get audited and the state provides the minutes, that you should definitely fill out your CE logs, just so that you write down this board meeting. You know, it couldn't hurt to have it for the state audit.
Use it,
Just
okay.
use the 2013.
Oh, okay, that-
That can't hurt.
okay.
Could you also please vote on the two CE things separately?
Yes, we're going to. We're going to. I have not got to that point yet. We're just trying to make sure we got the logistics out. Okay. The chair needs to entertain a motion that for Mr. Lingerfeld and Mr. Northcutt, 8 PDHs be approved for this board meeting.
We'll move.
Yeah, we're going to vote on that.
I'm so moved.
Okay, we have a motion.
Make the motion.
Okay, and those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, opposed? Okay. Now, we need a second motion that says that we award Mr. Cagle 3 PDHs for his attendance today.
So moved.
Favor?
Aye.
Okay, opposed? Okay. Does anyone else have any other business at this time we need to conduct? Not, the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn. It is now 12:23 according to my little TV here in front of me. Second?
Second.
All's in favor? Aye. Thank you very much. We appreciate everyone's attendance and your efforts.